Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks so much for joining us here this week. As always, you got me. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And take two.
Shh. Nothing.
No. Hey, I
wrong
think we
the
do this
first
perfectly
time.
every time.
Yeah, it's not like we didn't waste 10 minutes trying to get someone's internet working for the last 10 minutes.
No, nothing like that happened. And nobody mentioned Stockholm Syndrome. So I don't know what
Yeah,
you
we're
guys are
good.
talking about. This is your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thank you for listening on your favorite podcast platform, watching on YouTube, watching on SaskTel Max TV on demand. We appreciate it. Sorry about being delayed by one day. Steve, you had more important things to do. What was more important than the Piffles podcast? I need to know this.
I'm worried about his commitment to this.
Part-time.
Everyone knows Steve has no commitment. No commitment. None.
No commitment. My wife tells me my anniversary is more important. So I'll
And you
ask.
listen to her.
Yeah, that's how I've stayed married for 13 years.
Yeah, that's a really good
She's
point,
always
actually.
right, and I listen. Yeah.
Yep. You've done well.
That's not with a 10-foot clown pole. Nope.
Always listen to your wife, kids. That's the lesson of the day. So anyway, we're a day later than normal, but we get an extra day of training camp to talk about, and that is a good thing because things were heated at training camp on Wednesday. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Piffles podcast, of course, brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. You can give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. I'm at Real Alex D.
I'm at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports. And yes, that is contractually in my rider.
I was going to say, take two. We're still doing that part. It is in the contract that you have to say that. And if you're not around, we have to say it
for him
for
when
you.
he's not here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have very much we have to say on the show. That's the one that has
is
to be
one of
said.
them. And we already got the Simpson one out of the way. I said 10-foot clown pole. We're off to the races already.
Well, you know what? Tonight's already off the rails. Let's just jump right into it. Let's get to the opening kickoff. So going into this last week, I was excited. Last week, we talked about rookie camp. We had some cuts after that. Nothing major, surprising, anything there. But then the day of training camp, I'm getting ready. I'm writing up the Riderville Roundup that we put out every single Sunday, recapping the last week in Riderville. I hit post, and I look, and all of a sudden, Rider roster moves. Okay, well, I'll edit this. I'll add the rookie or some of the cuts that were made. Wait a minute. Jalen Edwards Cooper was cut. I did not see that one coming at all. I don't think anybody did as fans. I don't think media did. We found out.
Jamie and I didn't. He was very excited about him. We were talking about it last week.
Oh, yeah. And Jamie Nye, also one of the rookies that he was really high about was Mark Fields II. He was one of the rookie camp cuts. So Jamie,
enough of the Vanstone curse. We now have the Nye curse.
Oh, 0 for 2. If you want your favorite Rider player to be cut, just tell us who it is or tell Jamie who it is, and he'll come on the show and jinx them.
Or Steve will buy a jersey.
Can he jinx
way? We can do one of the
me?
two.
Can he jinx Chris Strebler for me? Is that possible?
Only if he becomes a Rider first.
Hey, if it means he's cut afterwards, that's even better.
Oh, just your face if Chris Strebler ever were to become a Rider. Oh my goodness, that'd be worth it.
And
right
also,
there.
thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
I was waiting for that, actually.
Why did I do that to myself? That was all on me.
Yeah, that's you.
Oh.
Anyway, Jalen Edwards Cooper cut on Sunday morning. We found out failed his physical, has a dislocated shoulder. The door is not closed on him though, which to me is a good thing because this is a guy that I was really excited in the defensive backfield, but now this completely opens this competition, which we thought, maybe going into free agency after his signing, there was only one spot available. Okay, well, maybe there's 3 or 4 spots available, possibly all 5 in this competition now. And that's nuts to me.
It's a lot, but it makes sense. When you go from back-to-back seasons where you can't win after Labor Day, no one should feel comfortable in their position. And it doesn't matter if your name is Roland Milligan or Deontay Williams, hell, Jaden Dalkey. It doesn't matter who you are. You need to show out to a new head coach, to a new defensive scheme. You need to bring your best every day in training camp. And it sounds like it's a blast. I kind of wish we were there this year.
I really do. I wish we would have sent somebody up to cover training camp. It always, for the last few years, it's felt like a formality. Like it's just the guys running through their paces before they're off to their next bowling team event. And all of a sudden now it's a legitimate thing. Like it feels like it's an event. It's something that fans are going to want to go to. There's an atmosphere to it. But I love seeing a wide open defensive backfield. I mean, you can probably pencil in a couple of guys in there once they're healthy, but beyond that, when the team went 0 for 18 to close out the last 2 years, and a lot of that on the defense's inability to stop anything, go for it. Let's see it. And I have full faith in Corey Mace to find his guys. So there's no penciled in starters on this roster.
All right. Well, we'll talk about training camp and all the energy that's in there in just a second. We'll just go through some of the roster cuts because some were actually made on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, officially posted on Tuesday night, but wasn't released until Wednesday. But just the rookie camps and some of the cuts, receiver Joshua Bunton, running back Kennedy Brooks, Jackson Serralo Brown, Canadian linebacker, Jalen Moody, linebacker Marcus Murphy, Elijah Ponder on the D line, and Mark Fields, the second defensive back. Those were all cut after rookie camp. Ryan Berta, offensive Canadian lineman that the Riders signed just a few weeks ago, actually. Mm-hmm. He was cut here on Tuesday night. Defensive back Cole Coleman, running back Jerry and Ely, defensive linebacker hybrid Roman Lee Harrison, receiver Braden Johnson, Kendall Watson as well, too, cut. A little bit of a surprising one, but maybe not necessarily. Defensive back Jamar Johnson and linebacker / defensive back hybrid again, Mark McLaurin. He was the guy that came over from the Edmonton Elks from last year. So we're out of the just the cuts like that, besides Jalen Edwards Cooper being the big one. Was there anything that surprised you guys there?
I thought Jerry Ely came in with a little bit of hype. Like he's got good speed, a little undersized, but I'm thinking based on who Coach Mace is, I think he wants that smash mouth blocking running back, and that's why they went out and got AJ. So Jerry and Ely might not be the running back for this team, but I think he's still has a future in this league.
I would have gone with Ely as well. All reports out of camp was that he was doing fairly well. He was fitting in. Now it does sound like potentially there's an injury situation there that might be why he was shown his release for now. But he was the big one to me. Kendall Watson, a little bit of a surprise only because he was one of the few guys, on the lower end of that depth chart coming back this year that maybe had a chance to move his way up, but clearly they didn't like what they saw and moved on.
Couple other roster notes as well. The team did sign offensive lineman Daniel Johnson, their offensive lineman they took in the 5th round of this year's draft. So they have their entire draft class under contract, except for the first round pick, Kyle Hergel. So lots of opportunity for these guys to get in as rookies. And Corey Mage said, if you can you're going to make this team on special teams. That's going to be a big thing. So if you're out there earning your way there, you have a good shot at the roster. And then global defensive lineman that they just drafted, Tyrone Taleni, he was put on the retired list. So we hardly knew ye. They posted the video of Corey Mace being so excited to FaceTime this guy and bring him in, and the guy just retires. So, yeah.
Pro football isn't for everybody, especially if because he was at USC, I think he was, wasn't he?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
he was at a big time football school, and maybe just the CFL just was like, nah, I'm good. Like, that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Now, the biggest surprises with roster moves to me over the last, almost week is all these suspensions. Well, I don't want to say suspensions, put on the suspended list, guys that just didn't report to camp. Wide receiver Daz Newsome. Okay, that's going to be a tough spot to crack anyway. But 5 offensive linemen were put on the suspended list over the last week. Gerald Hawkins, Jonathan Hubbard, Sedarius Hutcherson, Brandon Council, all guys that we thought were going to compete for the left tackle position, the wide open left tackle position. Dimitri Emmanuel as well moved to the suspended list. He was more of a guard. But we went from having 8 American tackles, a couple left and most of them right tackles, to now having 4, which, I mean, going into a game situation, I don't think is a terrible thing because you can evaluate them a lot better. But that competition got pretty short, pretty quick.
Well, especially when you can already say Yoshi Hardrick is locked into one of those spots. And we had guys fighting it out. That was the spot everybody was looking forward to, was that left tackle position, and how they finally brought in guys who are legitimate left tackles to fight it out for it. And all of a sudden we're down to 1. And it just out of nowhere.
We knew Brandon Council wasn't coming back. Like, that was very obvious he wasn't coming back. They're just putting him on the suspended list just in case whatever the job he has at Auburn probably doesn't work out, or he gets that itch and goes, oh, he might come back. Let's face it, Gerald Hawkins probably was like, it's not guaranteed. I'm not coming.
I'm not worried about that. That was the guy that was penned in as the starter last year without any competition, and then got hurt immediately. First off, he didn't even report to camp.
No.
The team went into scramble mode, and then he showed up, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're our starter. And then, less than a quarter in to his CFL career? A couple minutes, couple drives, whatever it was, and he was done. This guy wasn't, he didn't take a pro snap in 4+ years.
No. So I'm
honestly,
not
Aaron Rodgers' Jets career has been more prolific than Hawkins as a rider.
So that leaves us Hubbard, Hutcherson, and Emmanuel. So who knows? Some of these guys might be having passport issues. They don't really let us know why they're not reporting. It's not like it could be a very honest situation on why they're not here. So I don't think we need to hit the panic button. But what I do like about it, they moved Furlan out to tackle quite a few times apparently already, trying him out. So we might get our 4 Canadians on that offensive line, and that is going to be awesome.
There's a lot of potential that they could do. If they go with 4 Canadians on the O-line, you have 2, possibly 3 receivers. All of a sudden, you don't need to have a safety. You know, you can have Jaden Dahlke in the meantime while Jackson Ford is out, move to a linebacker position kind of thing, and get him closer to the ball. You can go with the 3 or 2.
Rotate him and Eau Claire. Like, that'd be so. I would love that on defense.
Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities here with this team and what they have for Canadian depth. But just going back to the left tackle, I'm sure Blake is probably option C right now. Furlan would probably be option B, but I like that they're giving him the reps in training camp. Just be ready, and we can see him out there. But it sounds like to me, Trevor Reed is the guy to. He came out with the ones first day of training camp. He's the only true left tackle left on this team. Jonathan Hubbard was the other one, but he didn't report. So everybody else is a right tackle. And not that they can't move over, but I'd like to see a guy who is a true left tackle, was a true left tackle in college, recently as well, too, even in mini camps in the States with the USFL, the XFL, the NFL, doesn't matter, whatever. And to me, Trevor Reed kind of has the leg up on everybody else right now.
Say what you want about the offensive line. That footwork is different depending on which side you're on. So if you're used to jab stepping one way, it could easily cross you up, and then you're getting your quarterback killed, especially on that blind side.
Well, and from what it sounds like, it's between Reed and Jordan Tucker for that left tackle spot. I don't know that they're going to look at Ferland or Blake outside of an emergency situation where they need to, if none of these guys shows they can do it. But it does look like Trevor Reed is the guy that they're hoping to rely on. And by all accounts, he's at least adequate at this point, which is a step up from the last half decade.
And the energy in this training camp is apparently off the charts. Jeff Airholm said he went to one of them in Saskatoon and said he was impressed by the energy given by not only the coaching staff, but by the players as well. And we saw, and all the media was saying that on by day 3, is that it's such a different vibe. And we knew that was going to be the case going in, but I think everybody's a little bit surprised by how different this camp is being run.
I got him. I check like everyone's videos, everyone who's there. Like Jamie and I, obviously in Britain, I was watching theirs. I was watching Luke and replacement Greg, Dave Thomas talk about it. And then, of course, Jeff Fairholm, replacement Steve, also talking about the energy there. Everyone is like, they are like the subtle shade or subtle bearing of Dave Dickinson's practices
Craig
Craig
Dickinson.
Oh, Craig, sorry. Yeah. Well, it could be Dave's too. I don't know. I've never seen a Dave Dickinson practice. But yeah, of Craig Dickinson's practices is like everyone's piling on at this point, because every practice, like me and Steve were talking about it, every practice is, this is the best practice I've ever seen. The next day, this is the best practice I've ever seen. Like every day is the best practice anyone has ever seen out of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So Coach Mace has definitely inspired a lot of people right now.
And honestly, you take away the energy, which has been, by all accounts, off the charts. They've been lively. It's been fun. It's an event. But the biggest thing is the accountability. And he's instilling that from day one with this team. Like, you do not step out of line on a Corey Mace field, or you're going to see consequences. And we haven't seen that in a couple of years, where guys felt safe
since Davis Reed
throwing their coach under the bus. You ain't going to see that under Corey Mace.
And to add to that point, Steve, what I love is that he called it accountability. Everybody was calling it discipline after the first couple days, and they asked him in the post practice scrum, and he said it's not discipline, it's accountability. And then we found here in day 4 on Wednesday, after a fight broke out in practice, I think it was Habakkuk Baldonado actually threw a punch at an O-lineman. Corey Mace got in there, stopped it, yelled at everybody, said that would be a penalty. You're going to hurt the team, and that will get you ejected in a game. We do not do that on this team. We will not hurt this team by, letting our emotions get the best of us. Made the team run sprints after that.
Entire team.
The whole team. Accountability. You're not going to hurt this team. You're not going to get away with it either. And that's not him, doing a little dig at Craig Dickinson. That's just how he's going to coach. And that's what this team, this organization needs right now, is accountability. And what I've been reading and what I've been hearing about from this camp, I absolutely love this.
Well, the accountability quote came from, he made Bruno LaBelle, who we do not talk about, because we do not talk about
Bruno.
Carry equipment bags.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a punishment. It's accountability, yes. But we're talking that is a grassroots coming up. You screwed up, you grab the ball back. Let's go. These are pros. And
Well-
he is making them accountable for everything they do. That's amazing.
And the thing I like about the fight and the sprints from day 4, if you're a guy on the sidelines watching somebody have to run sprints because they threw a punch, you're going to forget about it in a minute. But if you and the entire rest of your roster has to run sprints every time somebody steps out of line, you're going to step in and stop it before it gets anywhere. Or you're going to be the guy that says, hey, I don't need to throw that punch. He's instilling that idea that it's not just about you. This is a team from day one. I can't tell you how excited I am to see this team back in Regina, to maybe go to some of these practices. They sound like must visit events again.
And the thing is, though, it's not training camp until Micah Johnson runs through the first guy. Apparently, as according to the prophecy, Micah Johnson, first time at one-on-ones, right through a guy. Like, that poor bastard who lined up against him.
And everyone's saying that he is looking good. And you have him and Lanier back to the middle to the defensive tackle position. I don't want to say where he belongs, but where he
played better. Like
played better,
he can
excels
rotate
a little
out.
bit more.
He's better as a tackle. He is
Yes.
better as a tackle.
And you can put those two guys in the middle together, and you can rotate maybe like a Miles Brown and Charbel DeBeer in there with them. Oh my goodness, that interior that was getting absolutely decimated by the run last year, that is not going to happen again.
I believe I heard it was Sevier he ran right through. Like, just knocked him out of his cleats.
There's a reason why everybody gets a double, or why everybody double teams Micah Johnson. Putting him one-on-one against anybody is not fair. That is a battle he will win 100% of the time with an arm tied behind his back. The guy is a machine.
And Sevier, actually, now that you mention him, Greg, not projected as a starter right now, at least in the interior of the O-line. We were thinking possibly right guard and Logan Ferlin at left guard, but Ferlin was playing the right guard position, and it was Philip Blake at left guard. So I don't know if that's going to be the plan going forward, and Sevier maybe as the sixth man, or if Blake's going to be the sixth man, or if somebody else is going to beat them out. I don't know, but the O-line, it seems like, as much as we could probably predict who's going to be the sixth or the sixth O-line, I don't know who's going to start where, though, outside of Jamarcus Hardrick.
Well, and that's my issue with having four really good interior guys. Like, Godber's our center.
Yes.
So then you got Blake, Ferlin, and Sevier fighting for two spots. That's not good for your young talent, your Zers, your Fries, your guys you need to progress. You can't stash everybody on the practice roster. So they got to figure something out. There might be a surprising cut on that offensive line.
But what an absolute change from, again, 2023, where we're going to be able to roll out a guy like Ryan Sevier or maybe a Philip Blake as your sixth O-lineman, as opposed to feeling like you're playing your sixth O-lineman all across the board as we're getting bull rushed every play.
When we were starting Evan Johnson.
Yeah. Things are looking up in Riderville. It's delightful.
The worst part is he actually started playing competent near the end of the last season.
He did, actually. Too bad it took him a couple of seasons to figure it out, but by then it was too late. But who are you guys thinking is standing out from what you're hearing, what you're reading? Who's kind of a name? Like Kean Schaefer-Baker had a good day 4. He went up and basically just beasted a couple guys for catches. Okay, we know Kean Schaefer-Baker is going to stand out. That's what he does. Who is standing out to you guys from what you've seen or heard over the first few days of training camp?
I'm actually excited about Diego Feijoa. I'm hearing he's actually turning a lot of heads in that linebacker position. I don't know if that's going to actually get him as a starter, but if he can compete with a guy like TJ Brunson, I think that's where he's going to find his way. Like if he can come out like Brunson and just kill someone on special teams and make a name for himself, he could work his way as a integral part of that defense and special teams.
I mean, this is going to sound like a Homer Packers fan pick, but I'm loving what I'm hearing out of Geronimo Allison. I really want to see him stick around, and yes, 80% of that is because he's a former Packer, and I would love to interview the guy. And
Isn't he also a
just,
former Lion? Like, come on.
that doesn't count. But like, I want to hear stories about how crazy Aaron Rodgers is in the locker room. Is he that same? But no, from what I've heard, he's performing well. The big one to me is Shea Patterson. I've heard quite a few positive stories about him. And on the flip side, maybe not such great things about Mason Fine. And it almost feels like Patterson is kind of working his way up that depth chart, which to me is a massive positive. I felt uncomfortable going into 2024 with Mason Fine as our number 2.
I'm not, don't get me wrong, and that's fine, I guess, for lack of a better term, but I'm not 100% sold on Shea Patterson after last year as well. Like he was supposed to be the short yardage guy, and he lost that in a hurry. So hopefully he came in this season more focused. There's still a giant question mark at that number 2 quarterback position, no matter what we say. Like pray for the health of Trevor Harris, people. Like whatever deity you believe in, Thor, Rock, I don't care. Pray to it.
These 2 preseason games are going to go a long way in determining that. But it's funny because Steve, you say that Mason Fine was having bad or not looking so good, but then I go and I read that he had a great day 4, and he was making all the throws. He's a little bit leaner, and his arm strength is there. So it just it's up and down and up and down, and that's what's kind of the fun thing about training camp is that you could have a bad day, but then the next day you show up. And maybe that's what wins you a job.
Well, look at last year's preseason game. We were like, oh, Mason Fine's looking good. He's got this locked in. And then Dolagal lights it up. And we're like, okay, they're not bad. And then Patterson lights it up. And we're like, who the hell are they going to cut? And they didn't cut any of them.
Well, and this year with Jack Cohn on the roster as quarterback, people are saying that he's not impressing the way that they were hoping. I still think that there's a spot for him on the practice roster going forward. Because I don't think that there's a way that they can keep both Patterson and Fine. To me, that's unless Patterson can really grab hold of the short yardage and be the number 3 guy and Pipkin gets cut. But I just can't imagine that happening at this point right now.
Based on Pipkin's short yards last year, I don't see them going away from it. It's Fine or Patterson, and one of them has to stand out. If not, they've got to go find someone else because woof.
One name that I'm glad to hear is standing out is receiver taken late in this year's draft, Aju. They're saying that the more and more that he, gets the reps, the more and more he impresses, and everything about him just seems so smooth. Yeah, he tested, I don't want to say poorly, but didn't test as well as maybe he could have at the combine. But I personally only put so much stock in the combine.
I hate those tests. Like they're cosmetic at best.
Give me the one-on-ones. Can he beat a defensive back? Okay, I've seen guys fly in the 40, but if you can't run all the routes, that means nothing. If you can't get open, Don Narcisse, one of the greatest Canadian Football League players of all time, did not have a blazing 40, but the dude could run routes. He got open. And if you can do that, you're set.
Michael Bishop could kneel at the 55-yard line and throw the ball through the uprights with just his arm. Like, great cannon, terrible quarterback.
Anytime somebody brings up the idea that the combine will tell you your future, I look at a guy like Johnny Augustine. I remember when CFL week was in Regina and everybody was raving about his performance. He was the next big thing. He was going to be the guy. and we're what 5 years later, 6 years later, and
You want to talk
nothing
about bad combines and being great?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Tom freaking Brady, people.
Tom Brady needs to learn what a roast is, because I still don't think he knows what a roast is.
My favorite is
And I
like, I'm
think-
never going to do it. My favorite part is I'm never going to do it again. And I love Tom, like obviously, but I'm never. No one does 2 roasts. No one does 2 roasts. There's no point in doing 2 roasts. All the jokes have already done.
You get mad at something Jeff Ross says.
Well,
Jeff Ross is being tame. Oh, you can't
apparently
show up for a roast and then everybody tells the comedians, "Oh, you can't make a joke about Robert Kraft." Come on.
And that's it. Apparently, going in, they were told they could not make a joke about Robert Kraft. So
It's
when
ridiculous.
Ross crossed the line, and Ross was the first one, which is even funnier. Tom put his foot down and was ready to shut the whole thing down on live Netflix, which would have been a crazy move, and Netflix would have lost a ton of money.
But still, go ahead, make fun of my ex-wife and everybody else. Oh, but don't do it to Robert Kraft. Come on.
that's
one
where
of the-
you draw the line.
And
was
that
a
was
good
one of the
joke, though.
better jokes too.
That was a great joke.
Can't repeat it on this show. though.
No, we can't.
I don't think you can repeat anything from that entire live show on this show.
Probably not, actually.
No. Anyway, who would be a good roast in the CFL? Oh man,
Milt Stiegel. Oh, Dunnigan.
Danny McManus actually would probably be a good one too.
I could be on that day as I've got some Danny
Right
McManus
right now, Pinball Clemens.
Ooh. Okay, well, let's jump there. We'll talk more Riders because we got a preseason game to preview a little bit later on the show. That's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Now to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. Okay, Steve, pinball. Let's talk about it. This whole time with Chad Kelly, I was actually wondering where is Pinball Clemens in all this? Hasn't said a word. Chad Kelly shows up at rookie camp. Doesn't participate. Just standing around talking to guys. Not doing anything. He's doing what was allowed to him through the CBA and by the league. So in the sense that there was, I don't want to say legally, but contractually nothing wrong with what he did. There was nothing wrong with what he did.
It was an optional event that he just showed up to.
Yeah.
It was not a CFL event. It was not technically, well, it was a team event, but by contract, it was
participate.
It was no different than you and I being there, except he was on the field. Technically.
Yeah. But the optics of Chad Kelly
terrible.
being out on the field,
Terrible.
awful. You would think a big conglomerate like MLSE would know better.
I have a feeling they did know better. He just showed up.
Possibly. But MLSE
that would make it
has
even
done
worse.
nothing. MLSE
If he
has
still
done
showed
nothing
up,
about this.
if he still showed up and just said, "I'm going anyways," to me, that's worse than MLSE just letting him out there, because then that tells me that everybody down the food chain has no control over the guy.
And that's when the team needs to suspend him. Like actually
Have
suspend
you
him. They
seen his
haven't.
social media?
Unfortunately,
Do you think they have control of what he does?
Oh, jeez.
Do you think he has control of what he does?
So
his entire Twitter feed reminds me of was it Cam Judge that went off one night?
It definitely
at random?
was.
yeah.
Like
Definitely was.
his Chad Kelly's entire Twitter feed, top to bottom, reminds me of that one night of Cam Judge.
Yeah. Cam Judge's worst night. Yep.
Yeah, like an absolute dumpster fire of nonsense and subtle jabs at who knows who. Ugh.
So Pinball Clemens does a media scrum. Only for 3 people, though. It was Justin Dunk, Dave Naylor, and somebody else was there. This was not something that I think was planned. And I kind of feel bad for Pinball because you can tell, one, he wasn't comfortable, which I don't really care about. Sorry, that's kind of your role right now, is to answer these questions. He read the scripted statement off the bat, and then when the reporter started asking him questions, he had no idea what he was supposed to say, and it ended up being just a wreck. And it got to the point where he had the Craig Dickinson defense, like Garrett Marino has a black wife. Like that we have women that work here. Okay, cool. Like that's not the point of this. And it got so ridiculous that, and I know people lost a lot of respect for Pinball here. I actually felt really bad for him because I don't think he was ready for this. I don't think he was prepared by MLSE, by the Argos organization, to say what he should have said. And it just, again, optics looks so bad. And they're clearly putting winning games ahead of literally anything else. And I get it. Pro sports, you do that. Harrison Butker, look at his stupid comments the other day.
Oh my Lord.
But he's a good kicker. So whatever.
Bless you, Chargers, for putting him in the kitchen in your Sims video.
But
Pinball,
Pinball, like,
to
it was
the point,
just,
to the point about Pinball, though, like you could tell he was given a crash course in talking points.
yeah.
You say this, and that's it. And when he kept on getting peppered, he didn't know where to go to.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. He wasn't ready.
No, and that's why if you're going to do that, you don't do it on the sidelines of the field. You have a podium, and then you can control what's coming in. But if you're just going to stand there with no one telling the reporters that's enough, unfortunately, at some point it's like, we have plenty of women that work here. I have a mother. Like, no, like when you're going, I know a woman. That is a problem. Like you're not winning any argument then. It's too late.
The problem I have with this scrum and why I kind of deviate from the feel bad for him is it went from a couple of quick statements about what happened to basically 10 minutes of corporate jargon, like good enough isn't good enough and things like that, which I hate when you have to stoop to that level to try and get your point across. But the worst ones to me were the comments, we're not here to talk about that today. We're not here to talk about that today. And he said that 4, 5, 6 times when people were asking questions about the situation that we were here to talk about. And I get it. He had a very small list of potential comments he could make. But then you say, we're not ready to discuss that portion, or, I've been advised not to comment on that. We're not
it's
here
an
to talk
ongoing
about
legal
that.
matter. We're not going to, that
Right?
type of thing.
There was a easier way to do it than to just constantly repeat, we're not here to talk about that, followed by the corporate jargon. And there was so many of them, and it was so frustrating.
And that's my point. That's my point is he should have been in a controlled situation at a podium, and then it's okay, that's all I'm saying, and walk out. When you're on a sideline and you've got nowhere to go, unless you're going to be videotaped running the other way across the field very awkwardly, what are you going to do?
Where's Keith Pelly? Keith Pelly should be there with Pinball doing this. That's the president of MLSE, Maple Leaf Sport and Entertainment. This is a guy who's probably well versed at giving standard comments to questions. Even if you don't want to answer them, you give a little bit and then you shut the door on it. And as awful as that is to watch and listen to as a fan, that's what the organization needs to do. So
it's PR 101. That is,
they're just, and that's the worst part, is it's such basic stuff in the world of PR, and they're just blowing it. Like, it's so bad. And the Argos have a media relations social media team. So they tweeted out that Chad Kelly won't be participating in team activities. Okay. there's not a team statement on it. It's just coming from the media relations social media account. Then on Wednesday, they put him on the suspended list, but not really. They retracted that after that he hasn't been suspended by the team, but he is staying away from the team. And again, it's just palm to forehead. Like, guys, it's just a massive fail all around by the CFL, by the Toronto Argonauts, especially how this is all being handled. And like, if this guy isn't, if Kelly's not going to appeal this, just say that you're going to accept the suspension and that's it, and move on. And we're going to focus on the guys that are available to play for us right now. That's it. We're not answering any other questions about Chad Kelly because he's not currently with the team. When he comes back in August against the Riders, you can talk about it then. But until then, we're done. That's all they have to do. That's all the team has to do. And just keep Kelly away. You can still have him in the building because the CBA still allows him to do stuff with the team. But do not bring him out to the practice field. Do not bring him out to anywhere that a other media person might be. Just keep him sheltered.
And with that, there's such a simple out for the team. There is a pending legal matter. We will not discuss it. He's not here. Move on. Simple, cut and dried, but they have managed to bungle this up from start to finish, or start to the midpoint. I can't wait to see where they bungle it up next, because every step they've taken along the way has managed to make this situation worse. From not releasing a media point when the lawsuit came out, to having him on the practice field, to the CFL and their weird, we're looking for details on this report that they had to make public. Like, that's the one that was odd to me, where the CFLPA is publicly requesting this report. Like, no, do that behind closed doors. Just, this needs to be out of the limelight. We need to be focusing on the preseason coming up, on the regular season, on the players that will suit up for the Toronto Argonauts and the rest of the roster, or the rest of the CFL.
But I got to admit, though, I really love the fact that the women of the CFL are stepping up. Like, obviously, Christina Costabile, with the league, put out her own statement.
Yeah,
which apparently Jim Barker thinks she should get fined for. Which
good on the league for
let her speak her mind.
Letting her do that, but not, disallowing that, right? Like, that is a good thing. That's a very good thing. And
Like,
don't get me started on Jim Barker.
Like,
let's.
No. Not this time. Maybe
Dinosaur.
he'll do another stupid thing this week and we can talk about it next week.
There you go. Like, this is a, I understand it's hard to talk about stuff like this, but it needs to be said, because I'm about to get on a soapbox here. As proven by West Head's report of the Blackhawks yet again, with another scandal with women in their organization being harassed and assaulted. Like, the old time days of sports is a man's thing and we can do whatever we want because we're men. No, that's garbage. I almost swore. It's gone. Like, that is, we have a lawsuit about to go into full gear with Team Canada Hockey. That stuff is in the past, people. Like, sports is for everybody. Sports should be a safe place for everybody. Doesn't matter what. And the fact that some guys still think it's, I'm an alpha male, garbage. If I keep on going, I'm going to start swearing. So I'm going to stop.
All right. Well, we'll go to a different suspension then. Shawn Lemon randomly showed up.
Oh,
at
I was
practice.
worried about this one. I'm gonna have fun with this one.
No, you're not.
Uh,
You got to keep his name out your mouth.
Yeah,
God
Shawn
bless.
Lemon, back on the field with the Montreal Alouettes and is appealing his indefinite ban for gambling. Apparently, he also unretired as well to be able to join
Yeah,
the
no,
team.
no one mentioned that.
Yeah, no one mentioned that. Yeah, what do you guys? The CFL Randy Ambrosie put out a pretty strong statement saying, obviously, the integrity of the game is the most important thing, which I agree with. But they're gonna like vigorously fight this. I'm like, okay, like I've never seen a media statement by the CFL with that kind of, you know, I don't want to say aggressiveness, but they were pretty strong in their convictions about it. And this is just over a guy who, was gambling overseas, on an overseas app, basically, in a game he was in before
And
single game betting was legalized in Canada, and before there was really XYZ rules put in place. As you pointed out, Greg,
however,
it's a very broad
it's
rule.
very broad because going behind the scenes, we have our chat. And we're talking about it, and they're right. There was no specific rule put in the gambling until 2022. This was from 2021.
Yep.
However, in the CBA in 2019, and I quote, "For the maintenance of discipline, the commissioner shall have the power to fine an amount not exceeding $25,000, suspend, fine, and suspend any player, coach, employee, official, or team executive for breach of any requirement of the Constitution, bylaws, regulations, or any proper orders for conduct, actions, behavior that, in the opinion of the commissioner, brings disrepute to the league or the game of football." That is, you could drive a truck through that. That is so broad. And because we were talking about it, because I'm like, after Pete Rose, there has to be an integrity clause. This is the closest thing the CFL had, and it was put in 2019. Randy Ambrosie has the ability to do whatever the hell he wants to Shawn Lemon for betting on his own team. Doesn't matter if he won or lost. That is a problem. And Shawn Lemon should know that.
There's not a single pro athlete out there alive right now that doesn't know that you can't bet on your own games. Not even your own games, your own league. If you are playing in the NBA, you don't bet on the NBA. Technically, you're not supposed to sports bet at all, but I can understand if a guy is throwing money down on hockey. Who cares? But the moment you put money down on your own league, or even more specifically, on your own team, whether it's to win or lose, you throw the integrity of that game out the window. Now, I appreciate that Shawn Lemon was betting on himself. Good for him. If you're going to bet on a game you're in, I hope you'd at least bet on yourself to succeed, but you can't do that. And that is a known rule. That has been in existence, like you said, since Pete Rose. The CFL cannot allow this to be a successful appeal. There can be it just can't. They cannot lose that appeal. I don't care what rule they have to take. Shawn Lemon, if he bet on a CFL game that he was in, should not see a CFL field again. Period.
My favorite part of this is like people were trying to go, well, it's not that big a deal. It's like, well, no, it is. Like
The integrity of the game is probably the most important thing.
Like, and there's people trying to conflate it with the Chad Kelly, and I've already I've already made my case about Chad Kelly here. So I agree that guy should never see the field again. But the fact that Randy Ambrosie came out so strong but didn't say anything about Chad Kelly, there's a difference. There's a legal matter at hand where the facts have not been proven out. They obviously have the facts proven on Shawn Lemon betting on games to the point where Shawn retired hoping it would just quietly go away after re-signing with the Alouettes. And that's why they just joke like oh, all of a sudden he just unretired? No. He retired to avoid this coming out publicly. He knows what he did is wrong. And he goes, if I retire, maybe it'll just go away. No, league still put out a statement on it anyway. So he's like, screw it. I'm gonna fight it now. But I don't know how he can.
Random question for you because I have to ask, and because you mentioned Pete Rose earlier. Shawn Lemon, by all accounts, has had a Hall of Fame CFL career. I don't think many could argue that. If he was found to be betting on CFL football on games he was in, should he be eligible for the Hall of Fame?
As me and Shawn Lemon are very close friends.
Very close.
Very close. He DMs me every once in a while. Honestly, I believe this about Pete Rose. I think I think the all-time hits leader should be in the Hall of Fame. I really do. Because we've hit the point where the steroid era guys are going in. So if you want to talk about affecting the league, how can you say that about them and allow them in, but not Pete Rose? So Shawn Lemon, put an asterisk beside it. I don't care. But his career as a player is not affected by the fact that he put down $100 on the Stampeders to win and they still lost. And if that's all they can prove, so be it.
But then where do you draw that line? What's the limit? On when, obviously, a single bet and you should be removed from the league as a player, no questions asked. But where is the limit on your eligibility for the Hall of Fame? Because you say, oh, he put $100 down on the stamps. Who cares?
Well, I look at it this way, and this is the Charles Barkley school of thought. These men are not role models.
No.
You honor what they've done at the sport they've chosen to do. Ty Cobb, by all accounts, giant
horrible human being.
Horrible human being. Hall of Fame. Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame if Ty Cobb is.
Yeah.
So the fact remains is you're not honoring them as people. You're honoring their achievements. Don't get me wrong. I'm never going to say Chris Benoit should make the WWE Hall of Fame. What he did is beyond the pale. But I can kind of appreciate what he did in the ring. Can't stand him as a man. I can't watch any of his matches anymore.
Yeah, knowing what happened.
Yeah. But the fact remains is I understand what he did in the ring is separate from what he did as a person after the fact. So you kind of have to draw the line is what Shawn Lemon has done on the field is separate from what he did after. And if you want to punish that, that's up to the commissioner. That's up to the voters. It's not even up to the commissioner. The Canadian Football Hall of Fame is done by writers and its own commission.
Yeah, it's not owned by the league or anything.
So,
but can we please stop comparing the Chad Kelly situation and the Shawn Lemon situation?
Please. Apples and oranges. They're not even remotely the same.
The only similarity is that they were both suspended this offseason. That is it. It ends there.
All right. Well, let's get back to on the field stuff here. Talking Riders. For the first time in 7 months, we get to look forward to a game because the first preseason game is this upcoming Monday on Victoria Day, May 20th, 2 p.m., Mosaic Stadium. I hope you have tickets or you're watching on CFL Plus because the game will not be on TV. TSN is only putting
free on CFL Plus.
It's streaming on CFL Plus,
for free.
but it's not going to be for free. But TSN is only doing 1 day of preseason coverage because they don't want to have their panel work more than 1 day in the preseason, basically. But Riders and Bombers this upcoming Monday. First off, what are you guys looking forward to the most out of this preseason game?
Tailgate beers.
Oh,
being back in the stadium, that first game back is I don't care if it's preseason or not. It's funny. In my regular day job, I was out with a guy. He flew in from Calgary last night, and he's like, "Your stadium is amazing." Like he drove by it last night when he got it, never seen it before. And he's like, yeah, McMahon. I'm like, oh, I know. It's a POS. I get it.
Yeah, when you're used to McMahon, Libel Field is. I mean, Libel Field's a nice field, but
Libel Field's a beautiful facility.
but Libel Field is amazing compared to McMahon Stadium.
Yeah, like he's like, I cannot believe there's a stadium like that, like in a community this small in Calgary. And like, well, yeah. So yeah, like that stadium blows me away every time I go walking. What I'm actually looking forward from the Riders, I want to know how this quarterback battle is going to shake out. Like that's like, has Shea Patterson actually stepped it up? Will Mason Fine? Like the Riders had huge hopes of Mason Fine, especially considering that Dalagala walk. So let's see what happens here.
My bet is Trevor Harris wins the starting job. I know it's
Good
really
call,
going out
Steve.
on a limb there.
Good
Going out
call,
on a limb.
Steve.
Don't get his jersey though, Steve. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you
Nope.
just jinx him?
No.
I'm
I will
telling you
stay
now,
far away
Steve,
from
if
his
something
jersey.
happens in this preseason game, you better not be on this episode next week.
Oh,
I kind of have a cop out answer because I have 5 things that I'm kind of looking forward to. One is obviously left tackle. To me, that's the position. That's the one single position. And this goes beyond like the defensive backs because that's 5 positions, right? This is the one position that I'm really going to be looking on. Who comes out first? Is it Trevor Reed? Does he play with the starters? How long does he stay with them? Does he stay until Unit 2 is out and the backups start coming in? Or is he just one and done with the starters? Who's in next? Who plays better? Like to me, that's the big one that I'm going to be watching this upcoming Monday. And then of course the backfield, but I think they're going to be throwing so many guys around in the defensive backfield and putting them in different positions. And they're going to let that, like the tape, like they use tape anymore, the digital copies. That's what they're going to look at immediately after the game and see who played best, where they played best. And I think that's how we're going to find the defensive backfield. But overall, especially after seeing what they've done in the first 4 days of training camp, hearing about the energy and how different of a vibe it is, I'm looking forward to seeing that energy translate into a game. Are these guys just giving it their all the entire time? Are the starters giving it their all to prove that they should be starters? Because with a new regime, you don't really know, really. So you kind of have to prove yourself all over again. Are these guys coming out and are they just putting in the motions, or are they actually really going for it? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
for me, the big one. I mean, you can look at the quarterback battle, the O-line. Those are the clear and they're the sexy picks. I'm excited to see that 3 through 5 receiver spot. You know, we know that the Shawn Baines and the guys like Jarrett Stern have a leg up, but your Canadian receivers, they've all shown what they can do. We know what to expect from them. But I want to see what some of these new crop of receivers can do, and I hope they get a lot of time with the number 1 unit, because I want to see some cohesiveness there, and I just want to see somebody step up, somebody new. That's I realize that wide receiver is just as sexy a position as the others, but to me, that's a spot that they just need one more piece to really put them over the top. And I'm excited to see who wins that battle, because we're seeing a lot of names coming out of the first 4 days of camp of guys that are stepping up in camp that are looking great. Your Geronimo Allisons, your Ajus, even the other what is it, Duncan
Busby.
the other Canadian,
Duncan
Busby.
Busby.
Thank you.
Yep.
Like, you've seen great things about all of the Canadian guys coming in. I just want to see them all out on the field. That's the position I tend to watch for more often than not. Is your running back, which we know AJ Willette's our starter, and your wide receivers. That's the fun spots for me. That's the spot I will be concentrating more on than anywhere else. Is see who shines.
Like, and I also understand that it's a preseason game and they're not going to have their full offense in. I'm curious what Mark Mueller dials up here. under his own power, like what is this offense going to be? Obviously, it's going to be a smash mouth if you signed AJ Ouellette. That running game is going to be hard blocking, hard running. So I'm curious what this is going to look like.
It sounds like it's going to be a lot of tempo, quick passes, rhythm, get the ball out, and I think take your shots when, like you. It sounds so cliche, but you set up the long ball by doing the short ball, right? So I think we're going to see, maybe not necessarily in the preseason game, but I think that's what we'll start seeing in the regular season week 1 is a lot of tempo, a lot of quick passes, get the balls to your playmakers. Don't rely on, I mean, Trevor Harris isn't a mobile guy, never has been. Don't keep him in the pocket too long. Keep him comfortable, right? Like I think that's going to be the main focus of the offense this year. And of course, yeah, running the ball with AJ. I'm kind of curious how Corey Mace is going to do. First time in control of the entire team, not just a positional unit or the defense, just half the team, right? So and especially with a bloated roster, like a preseason game, the first preseason game, 75 guys plus non-counters. So how many of these guys are actually going to be on the field? 80, 85 players. How is he going to control those guys? And is he going to be the same guy that we saw in Toronto when the defense gets an interception, that he's, up there high-fiving them and chest bumping and everything too? Because now he's the head coach. He's got to automatically flip to the other side of the ball right after that interception, right? So just the growing transition of going from a coordinator to a head coach. Low key, I'm kind of just going to kind of paying attention to that as it goes. I'm just interested in that. I think that's going to be something fun to watch.
Sticking on the coaching side, from Mark Mueller's point of view, the one thing I really want to see is excitement beyond the first game of the year. I remember being super excited about our offense last year after that awesome goal line play in Edmonton, and I thought, this is it. We finally, or against Edmonton, we finally got an offense that's going to do some fun things. We're going to, keep guys guessing, and then it became the most vanilla offensive playbook since Belfay. It's just, I'm really hoping that Mueller can keep things exciting beyond that first game out of the gate.
Hey, what I really want to know is AJ Ouellette going to come out swinging the hammer? When they introduce the
100%.
riders, is the hammer coming out with him?
I think that'll he might do it this one, but for sure I think that's the beginning of week 1, like home game, regular season game 1. That's his time to shine.
We got a quick touch on it. TSN, that interview he did with Kate Barnes. I hope TSN does more stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was a great interview. It was fun. She gave him one of the stuffed hammers, and even admitted, like, yeah, they started making these things 2 years ago, and they couldn't sell them until they signed me.
Yeah.
Well, remember, somebody told us that was collusion, that was our plan to sign him before it happened.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the fact remains is, and also go back. I'm not going to blow up where he lives, but I can't believe he name checked where he's living this summer. Does he not know this market?
I know a few people that'll just be peeking over the
doing the Wilson
over the gates. Yeah,
peeking
over the gates. He's about to find out what Rider Nation is all about.
Yeah,
the good and the bad.
But I'm looking forward to Monday, the first preseason game. Normally, I actually care if the team wins or loses, especially because they lost, 15 straight going into last year. And then they won both their preseason games. And I was excited about that because they'd lost for so long that even winning a meaningless game still means something. I'm back to the point where I don't care. I don't care if they lose this. I just want to see the compete level back with this team in the preseason. And I'll care about wins and losses starting in week 1.
Show me fire. Show me you want to be here.
Yes.
That is the one thing that really annoyed me at the tail end of last year. There was guys you could tell were not trying. i.e.,
Well, they didn't have to because they knew they were still going to get a paycheck the next week because they weren't going to get cut because the coach had no balls to do it.
because he loved him. All you had to do was love him
Yeah.
harder.
Would have saved
I
him a
look
little
back
bit
to
on
that.
bowling.
I look back to that George Reed, the game after he passed away, and the absolute
I am
lack
glad I
of-
was not there in person. I would have
Yeah.
punched somebody.
It was worse than you think it was.
That was
There was
embarrassing.
maybe one or two guys that were on that field that seemed to care, and the rest were just going through the motions. And I feel like we will not see that.
No.
Even in preseason, we aren't going to see that from this roster. This is going to be a group that is at 100%, or you're going to be out of a job, or at least carrying the equipment bags after practice.
Oh, I just realized what I'm actually really looking forward to in this game is anytime the Riders are on defense, especially to start the game, because I don't expect Zach Collaros to be playing very much. Chris Strevler.
Can I offer
Stravy,
can I offer a 6-pack of Churchill to the first player that sacks them?
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I suppose
I might have to throw that up on Twitter. First Rider player that sacks them. There's a 6 or a Churchill beer on it for you.
And also, thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
I'm really glad that you guys mute the mics when you play that video. Otherwise, you would hear not nice things every damn time you play that.
Best money we ever spent, Alex. Best money we ever spent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The best part is we conned Steve into paying a third of that.
We did, actually. The joy of being 3 equal partners is if 2 of us say we're doing it, third one has to come along.
This is a PSA to the CFL family. Never tell people the things you don't like. Never do it. You will never hear the end of it.
Ever.
Ever.
Well, preseason game this Monday. The off season's over. Training camps, everything's real now. I'm looking forward to it. Kickoff for real in a few weeks. But I'm looking forward to getting out to. Hopefully, it's a nice day at the stadium because it's May long, right? So I mean, it's probably going to snow at some point somewhere in Saskatchewan. It's supposed to kind of rain a little bit, but hopefully, it's a nice day at the park and we can just enjoy being there. And I mean, obviously, we don't take the game so seriously. Just, I mean, obviously the players do, but just enjoy being at the stadium for the first time. And then, because it's going to be another month until we're there for the home opener. So I'm just looking forward to getting back out there.
I love CFL scheduling intricacies. Here's a very early preseason game, and then don't see for your first game for a while.
Yeah.
So. Hey, we've made it through the wilderness, people. Let's effing go. Like, I am excited. Like, we've made it through the off season.
There we go. Piffles podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, go out to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty, Churchill Brewing Company, and Chris Strevler for their support, making this show possible.
We support him. We support him.
Yes. Steve supports him specifically.
Yeah.
Financially as well, too. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on Sasktel Max TV on demand. We appreciate it. We leave you, as always, with Greg singing.
That goes behind.
That worked again.
Yeah, there you go.
Tyler Gilbert.
All right. Goes behind your mind.